welcome to today's first panel, How to Get a Job at Paradox. Take it away, Caroline.
Well, thank you. Is this on? Yes, it is. Good. Well, welcome everyone. So glad to see so many of you. After tonight's party, I thought maybe we were going to be alone. Did you have a good time yesterday? Yes. Everyone's happy so far. We are very happy so far as well. My name is Caroline. I work as a people and performance specialist at Paradox, which means basically I'm HR. Today with me I have 4 people. We were supposed to be 5, but I mean, 1 casualty is fine. Who do we have here?
I'm Henrik Hansson, and I've worked at Paradox for 5 years now as a programmer and recently switched to game designer.
I'm Sebastian Borg, working as QA. Have been soon 2 years with the company, currently with Imperator Rome as QA, formerly Stellaris QA.
I'm Susan Macbeth. I'm the Senior Community Manager and I've been working here for a year. Fun fact, my first day last year was actually PDXCON.
Wow, how to top that? My name is Martin. I'm responsible for recruitment at Paradox. So I work with our managers to make sure that we make the right hiring decisions and also to work long term on how we're gonna, do it even better. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about how to get a job at Paradox. It's going to be a panel discussion, but it's also going to be a Q&A session. So whenever you have a question about anything, just raise your hand, and Malin and Jörgen will make sure you get a mic. When you have a question, please direct it either to the entire panel or to a specific person. You see our names up there, so you can remember our names. Yes. For the fun.
And if you don't recognize me in the picture, I actually had a comment from someone yesterday that I look a lot okay, today, so I'm not sure about that one. I probably need to replace that.
Yes, because you're so old,
but that's
Martin.
me. That's me, the recruiter.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought we were going to start off by talking about front seat and everything. Welcome. That seat was just waiting for you, right? Exactly. So I thought we were going to start off about talking about how the heck did we end up at Paradox. Henrik, do you want to start?
Oh yeah, though I started ages ago, so like a lot has changed how we recruit people since then. But back then it was like a random programmer just wrote me an email. Hey, can you come in tomorrow for an interview? I live on the other side of the country, but sure. So like I just traveled in and did my 3 interviews in one go, and I was completely exhausted at the end of the day. And then in the morning I saw, hey, we want to hire you as a programmer. It's like, but I never, like, I wasn't expecting to actually work here up in Stockholm. I liked it down in the south, but so now I ended up here instead.
Yeah. So how come you became a programmer?
I started with that when I was like 10 years old. It was just my hobby. It was my passion. So I just loved coding. So I just went every education and so on. Like I didn't go to university because I don't like academics, but I went to a vocational education, which meant I got to do more hands-on and like actual projects, which was more fun, like actually making a game instead of like, well, I'm gonna do a theory on how a star works or something. I don't know what they do in universities.
And the others of you, how come you decided to do your line of work? And what education do you have? Should I sit still? Don't move. Sebastian.
So how I ended up here? Well, I have, before Paradox, I don't really have a background in QA at all. So I was really bored at my previous job in the spring and thought, I should probably look for a new job. So I sent out for a lot of in the IT business, and then I thought, hey, I've always loved Paradox. What's the worst thing that could happen if I send in an application? And well, hello.
Susie.
Okay, so I had a kind of a non-traditional route for how I got into things. I didn't bother going to university. I went traveling instead. I always knew I wanted to be a writer and meet new people. That was always my thing. So I basically stalked as many news organisations and magazines in the UK that I possibly could, and websites, through multiple emails and article pitches until someone started to publish me. And I formed my own company doing community management and ghostwriting for different startups all over the world. And I did the two things all the time, so I barely slept. Then I decided that I was a bit lonely because I was always working by myself all the time. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I saw a job advert for Paradox, and I applied. And then 1 day later, they gave me the call back, and now I'm here.
Martin.
All right, before I get into my story, I would just like to say how amazing it is that this is packed room. I mean, karaoke and a lot of alcohol yesterday. Battletech is doing a cool talk, so thank you guys for coming. All right, so I've been with Paradox for 3 years and 3 months, not that I'm counting. I mean, I didn't think it was possible to do my line of work within the games industry, so I ended up here by, just by chance, really. I was moving back to Sweden after a few years abroad. I'm from here. And this job popped up 6 months covering for a paternity leave. So I got in touch with the guy who hired me, and after the 6 months were up, got the chance to stay, and I'm very grateful for that.
And you and I, we started like 1.5 weeks apart. Me and Martin, we work in the same department.
I'm still having a grudge that you started before me.
Yes, I know. 1.5 weeks. Yes.
No, I have to ask, did all of you also, on this day of the 6-month trial, just hide, don't notice
No,
I
I did
exist?
not. Did
let
you
me
hide
stay?
the entire day? You didn't work.
I just didn't talk with anyone of responsibilities to actually say you don't get to stay. Because back then we didn't have the feedback. Now we have, when we have a new hire during the trial period, we tell him we want you to improve this. This is how it's looking for you, and so on and so on. Back when I started, there was nothing. There was just you just worked and thought you did a good job. And then when I got my mentee, and he asked me, am I doing a good job? Am I gonna get hired? Have anyone said anything to you? No? Then you're doing a good job.
No news is good news.
Yeah, exactly. Back then it was. Now it's
Back
way
then.
better.
Okay. So Martin, when Henrik started, the recruitment process was a little bit different from what we have today.
I would imagine.
There was none.
You said 3 interviews. I mean, I was surprised it was that many.
Could you tell us what does the normal recruitment process at Paradox look like?
Sure. So there's a baseline that at the end of the process we're supposed to have check 3 things. So the first thing would be role-related knowledge. So that means if you're a programmer, for instance, that you're a good programmer. If you're supposed to work within community, that you have the competencies and skills that we look for in that role. And then you probably heard about culture. That's very important to us. So we have also cultural fit. They're supposed to go through that. And finally, we also look for something that we call self-leadership. And this is actually part of the culture at Paradox, but we think it's so important that we break it out of the process. And with the end goal of having to look at those three things throughout the process, the way there can look a little bit different. We have a couple of tools that we use. The interview probably being the most common one. We also use a lot of work tests, knowledge tests, cases. But we want, and the process needs to look a little bit different due to roles being different and the things that we look at being different. But we need to make sure that we have looked at all those things before we make a hiring decision to make sure we hire for quality. Welcome. No shame, you're all right.
Okay, and how long is this process normally, from when we put up an ad until someone is hired?
Yeah, okay, so we never, I know that some companies in their adverts use, so this is the last date to apply. We don't do that because we want to make sure that we, well, for one, don't end up doing that, and in the end want to make a decision and that person maybe decides to withdraw in the last minute. So the process is going to look a lot different, but I can say that our average time to hire from when a role is approved is 67 days. So I mean, it takes some time going through all the steps. First, we gotta make sure that people applied, then we gotta look at the applicants, couple of interviews and tests and all that. So I think you will need to expect that it's gonna take a while, but that's just us want to make sure that we do a good job.
Okay. And what kind of tests do we use normally?
Sure. All right, so we leave it, we trust our managers a lot to come up with the relevant tests because obviously they know their discipline really well. So for instance, when we hire programmers, we have a cooperation with a company called Katis, so they provide programming tests for us, and then we have just tweaked it to make sure that we look at the things that we want to look for. We also have tests within QA that's pretty hands-on. For roles at publishing department, it's usually more to solve a specific problem, a case that you get a couple of days to look at. If we're hired for artists, it's usually an art test. So it's a good mix, really.
Did you guys do any tests when you started? You did, Susie.
I did, yeah. Yeah, for all of the community roles, you have a case that you have to do, and it's comprised of several different things. So, like, can range from how to interpret patch notes to how to solve an issue on the forum, and then also community isn't just about posting on social media. It's also about coming up with strategies for how you're going to push and sell the game, and also grow the community. So it's you have one or two of the questions is about how to put together a campaign, and then to give examples and to put your posts together. So it's quite intensive, but it's really good because when you're doing the case, you then know yourself whether you're right for that role. And then also, I've looked at many cases because I also do part of the hiring for community, and you know if someone understands, the role thoroughly, or at least has the enthusiasm or that spark that you look for, that you know that they're going to be able to grow and thrive.
Okay. And Sebastian?
Yeah, so for QA, we got a work test that I'm not going to go into detail, but let's just say that it's one of our PDS games that is intentionally the most broken thing ever. Ever. You guys don't even know.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of did 2 tests. So first, and at both, I felt like I have no idea what I'm doing. But the first one was programming. So programmers back then, I think they still do. When they get first, we have a test to filter out, weed out, like I guess people that don't know programming but think they do. Like it's a simple A-star test or something like that. And then we have more. When we take them for interview, we have more questions about like how the certain quirks in the compiler and so on. And I think there's 3 of those still, right?
There's two Thank you, Sebastian. no, there's 2 now. It's I think it's a little bit condensed.
Okay, yeah. So it's easy mode now. No, but oh no. The third test is when they get the hard questions like Star Trek or Star Wars and stuff like that. But yeah, no, that is in the interview. But so think about it. But I don't know.
Choose wisely.
They're like then the a programmer manager and a senior programmer will probably be present and talk with you and will ask you about like how you answered and so on. And even if you wrote wrong, we can still pass you because your reasoning or like you acknowledging that you were wrong can help. Like it's at least when I looked at applicants now, I have looked at like, is this a person that can grow? Like not everyone is always correct. So, if you're wrong on everything, then no, then it's not going to be a thing. But like you were wrong on this thing, but I can see your reasoning when you're talking to me, and I can also see that you agree that you were wrong. Then it's a bit better case. And then I did the game design test, which I again felt like I have no idea what I'm doing, even though I've worked hands-on on the game for 5 years. And that was a test on we have this mechanic in EU4. You're supposed to make a mechanic a mechanic based on this. You have this many words to use. It's like, yeah, but I need to write more. How am I gonna fit all I want to say in this little text? But yeah, so in that part you also test, I guess, how much you can condense your idea and formulated as well as possible. And I cheated by photoshopping together pictures to say what I wanted. So that's a good tip.
Pro tip.
Pro tip, cheat if you can.
Okay. So, Martin, people here are obviously here to know how to get a job at Paradox. Could you tell us a little bit more about what are we looking for in people?
Yeah. So apart from what I told you earlier, so the end goal to look at cultural fit, self-leadership, role-ready knowledge. When we do the interviews, we try to focus a lot on behavioral questions. It's really important for us to understand how you behave in a typical situation that's relevant for what we're looking for. So if you're interviewing for us in the future, try to refrain from just going abstract, this is what I think, this is what I believe, because that doesn't really teach us that much. It's much more interesting to look at, so have you been exposed to that situation? How did you handle it? What did you learn from it? And we spend a lot of time trying to poke, dig deeper, and really understand how you approached it. So please prepare for that for your next potential interview with us.
Okay. Is there anything that you should avoid when applying?
When applying?
Yes. Or in the recruitment process overall?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've seen examples when people leave things out in their CV from that maybe don't think is relevant. But I would like to see that. Include everything that you've done. Maybe, well, not 10 pages of CV, but if you done something that you think is completely relevant to working in games, it's okay to include that, especially if you don't have that much experience. If you have 50 years experience of game development, fine, you don't have to include it. But otherwise, I can imagine a lot of people here want to get into the games industry, so that's why I'm saying that. Because a lot of skills, or the soft skills, that's not necessarily related to game development, the role-ready knowledge stuff, that can tell us a lot about how you approach situations.
Cool. Yes, so if you have any questions, we have the throwing cube, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Two small questions. First, could you maybe describe the process of becoming an intern and how you handle your internships? And secondly, what is it that makes a CV or an application stand out to you at first glance? What are you looking for? It stopped working. Both in terms of both in terms of how it is laid out and how it is designed.
Yeah. Okay. First question on the internship. I'm going to be honest and say that I'm not entirely happy with the way we are handling internships right now. That has been a consequence of we are doing a lot of hiring. We've had to focus a lot on the full-time roles. So this has taken a bit of a not as much focus from us. And on the other hand, that's a shame because obviously having someone come in and do an internship and impress us, it can be a great source of actually full-time hires as well. And when we have done it, it's been more ad hoc. Someone getting in touch, being lucky, a manager coming up to me and having a spot in the team. And when we have done it, we have a great track record of people coming in and really impressing us and getting a full-time job afterwards. So one of my focuses the coming couple of months is going to be to standardize this a bit more, so we can do this a little bit more predictably and can communicate that to you guys as well who want to do that. We had a long-standing advertisement when we accepted applications, but it's been more of an open application, and we rarely had a chance to do anything, unfortunately. Short answer, we can do it a lot better. We will try to, and yeah, then we'll let you know more. What was the other question again? Sorry. Yeah, okay. So a good trick is usually to tailor, especially your cover letter for the role that you're applying for. I'm just going to assume that everyone in here is passionate about working for Paradox, so I'm not going to give you advice about writing about that, but please do, because that's a way you can stand out. But also show us how you're passionate about that role in particular, because it's great for us to have passionate people join Paradox, but it's super important for us to also know that you're going to be passionate about what you're doing in that particular context. Because sadly, it's not going to be enough just to be passionate about Paradox. You're going to also have to add a lot of value in your discipline.
Yes, I think we had another question here. Yes.
When you're applying, when you see an applicant applying, is education or experience a better how would you say it? What do you look for more?
It's gonna depend a bit, but as if you want me to give to choose, I'd say experience definitely. For us, it's more important what you can do rather than education. That is my rule of thumb, at least. So if you can show us that you can do the job, then usually we'll go more for experience. But all that can be important. It can be an extra, something extra that we look at. But in general, I'd say experience.
Next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about, for example, you and Henrik and Sebastian. You've been with the company for a few years. What do you would say? What makes a person successful at Paradox?
I would say in my case, it has been like taking ownership, like in a way, like, you know, so before coming to Paradox, I had like insane amount of hours on our games. Now I don't have time to play as much as I want to, but like, so when I got put on CK2 and they were working on the old gods back then, and it's like, oh yes, I get to play this before anyone else. So, and I started to see things I didn't like. So it's like, oh, but I'll fix this. Like, and you know, you take ownership over, and you get even if I'm not the product owner, I still feel a responsibility for the product, and I want it to be good. So it's that extra mile, right? That makes our game the game there are. You know, Glitterhoof, like that was me just random weekends, like, you know what, everyone likes this joke on Reddit. I'm gonna actually make it a thing. And then I hunted down an artist that wanted to do the portrait, and then bam, now we have bestiality in the game.
Okay.
So for me, I would say, like, of course, passion is a main factor. But at least in my line of what I think I've done a lot for me is just flexibility. Because in games, things will happen. You might have a launch that does not go as you want, or things, and to be able to say, I have thought to do this, but we need to do this, and to be able to just let things go and to focus on things. And I think flexibility is a really good thing to have with you when working in a creative, while also being in a business sense company, because there is a large mix between the two. We can't just be creative all the time.
Also on the flexibility, it's less now, we become better at it, but in the start we moved people between the projects a lot. So like one day
Talk for yourself.
but like so one day I was on CK2, and then suddenly Hoy is on fire, can you come and help with the AI, because like everyone was new. So like, okay, like I'll come in and help out, and then that month became like 3 months, and then I get back on CK2, and then, oh no, you need to get back on Hoy, and then I was on EU4, and then CK2, and then Secret Project, and then EU4. So like we jump around a lot.
And as a QA, we actually have time set off every week to keep up to date with the games that we are not on currently either, which means that even if I'm on Imperator, that means that I have a few hours every week for me to go into my least knowledgeable game to just keep up to date in case there is something that is needed from me on that project.
Yeah, for me, definitely flexibility and ownership, but more so in publishing side, which is a little bit different from the studio side of it, is that you have to be able to be fluid. So you have your line teams and you all have your job titles, but we all work together as one. So, you know, if the content producer needs help, you help with that, and so on. So you have to be, teamwork is super key to this. And so being honest and open and having to have this dialogue with people. If you need help, you need to ask for it straight away. If someone else needs help, you help them, and you just work together as one. And that's one of the most fantastic things about Paradox, is that your team and the people that you work with in general become kind of your family. So you have really close relationships with them, and the relationship is always honest and getting shit done constantly.
Great. So could you guys tell us a little bit more about what is an average day at Paradox? What do we do all day?
I come in, is super angry, get coffee, and then I become alive.
Yes.
But for me, well, as a programmer, for me was like there's a morning meeting, and pretty much like you get the sense of like how is the project right now, and then start working and coding, finishing tasks, and then every third week is fixed week, where we just like plow through as many bugs as we can in 1 week. And sometimes we have competition days where we compete with each other on who can fix the most bugs, and QA will grade points on how much worth one is, and I've won that every time. But but now as a designer, it becomes more. I still do coding, but it has become a lot more like fire brigade squad, making sure like everything is going on, working, and everyone knows what they're supposed to do, and constantly getting disturbed from doing my own work because someone has a question like, should this icon look like this? Yeah, sure, I don't know. But yeah, but so it's design role is a lot more talkative, I would say. Like I talk with the entire team all the time, compared to programming, where I was in my little universe and just listening to like one of these like 10-hour loop songs all day.
Okay. And Sebastian?
Yeah, so as a QA, I don't really code that much, and I don't think you guys want me to. But a day for a QA can be a bit different depending on the day, because like just after release, we might have a lot of regression to do as we're working with hotfixes and patches with the information that we've gotten from you in the community as well. But also early in the process, we tend to have a lot of playtesting and also looking over and feedbacking on design to make sure that we think about things as well before the programmers and the content designers start making it, to make sure that we try to QA even just the idea of the thing. Like, wait, we have an infinite loop here, we cannot have this, please redesign it. And then also checking over once it is implemented that it's working as the design has specified. So like, it's very different for QA on a weekly basis, I mean, and even on a daily basis, which I really love.
Yeah, and I'm in a schizo mode, because as a programmer, the QA is your best friend. As a designer, they're my bane.
For me, most of my days are very, very different. I have core things that I do every day, like I will go through the forum and read through all of that and start replying to people. I'll go through social and check on things, and I'll make sure all of the posts that need to go up are scheduled. I'll check in with the other community team to see what is going on in the communities in general, and if any of them need help. But then for the rest of the day, I'm usually spending time working on projects. So like recently, I was spending a lot of my time working on the YouTuber War product thing that I was producing. So that means kind of communicating with the influencers. I even spent like a couple of days helping direct the voiceover and so on. And then I'll work on competitions, and yeah, every day is different. So in my job, it's plenty of chaos, and plenty of fun.
Okay. I'm not going to let you
No,
talk.
I probably don't
Yeah,
think
I
people
think
are
everyone
interested in
knows
this, so
you.
no,
But
I
we
think
have
that's a good
a
idea.
question somewhere
Yes.
on there. Yes.
You mentioned before that the skills you're looking at is both practical skills and how you fit in the company culture.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate more on the company culture part? What are you looking at there?
Sure. So
Great question.
we have gone a long way to try to identify and decide together what our culture really is, and also do that together. So it's not just management team that does that. We actually went to Malta to do that. We didn't go there just to do that, but unfortunately. But no, we sat down everyone together and figure out what is our culture really. And then what we gone on to do since then is to break that down into so how do you actually behave if you live our culture? What does passionate mean? What does dedicated mean?
Can you say all 5 of them?
Yeah, okay, so I got 2 of them already.
Do you remember them, Martin?
Get shit done was
sure.
one, right?
Get shit done, open-minded, and passionate, dedicated, and
Nerdy.
nerdy, of course. Nerdy is
Nerdy.
maybe the most important one. Okay, so we've broken those down into actual behavior, and then gone on to also translate those to question. So if we want to measure get shit done, for instance, which I would probably translate to self-leadership, which I talked about, how do you actually behave? And I'm just going to take the opportunity to elaborate a bit on self-leadership because it can be a bit hard to understand. But really for me, it's about what you talked about, ownership in a sense. Being able to get a complicated task and arrive there and figure out yourself how you're going to get there, because we're not the company yet, although as we talked about yesterday, we're almost mid-sized now. We're not going to have all the structures and processes in place, so we can, we're not going to have elaborate steps in each single role. So we're going to leave a lot of the trust to you guys to figure out. And it's also about being proactive rather than reactive, being able to make change and drive change within your discipline, to be able to take it to the next level, basically. So that's what we expect of each single one.
And then we had another question.
Not within this, but in every other advert you've put up normally and application announcements, you've mentioned experience working with Paradox games in existing cases, such as modding or working with the script code and etc. Could you elaborate on what that kind of experience looks like and how valued that is in your opinion?
I think that is, content designers is what you're referring to, right?
That's where I've seen it most, yes.
Yeah, so it's like, we, for us, scripters or content designers are very different from like any other role in the game industry, because like you sit and implement features essentially, but you do it in our scripting language, and so it usually helps, like if you've been a modder, you kind of already know the pains, you already are like halfway there, right? You're essentially a content designer, you just haven't done anything official for us.
If I could elaborate, assuming that someone is doing content design, does that have the ability to link into other roles potentially, or is that a very separate track, so to speak?
Trin Trugla, that is the content designer for EU4, he's gonna be a game designer as well. So like he was competing for my role that I get. So, but like like the whole like ownership, like you can, even if you can't do the code, you can still kind of own the feature and ask a very tired looking programmer if he can, add this trigger or effect. Like that becomes the main difference with modding, is a modder can't, unless you're main taxes and you keep nagging me, what you, like you can ask the programmers to add stuff for you, and usually it goes really fast if they know what they're doing. So like, that's why Sika 2 is probably one of our most moddable games, is because I just felt like it's easier if I just implement this so I can do it in script. Like that's why the dynamic mercenary system is all done in script, right? So it's like that, and like you're probably gonna see that more now in E4 when I work on it. Like there's gonna just be more modability because I just feel it's easier working that way.
Would a content designer, is that hiring process different, or is it fairly similar to what you've already described?
All right, so no, the process is similar in the way that we're still going to follow the steps that we do. But it's a good point. It's only quite recently, and I say past year or something, where we've seen some success with hiring people that has that kind of background. But also, there's been a few cases now where we taken on people and doing this freelance instead. Partially due to sometimes it just fits people's life situation. It can be done remote. It doesn't require us to do as much of a process. But we also have some cases now where at least 2 people, I think, started as freelancers and now going to go on and work with us full time. So it's been a great source of candidates for us, and as I said, only recently that we figured that out.
Okay, well, we only have a few minutes left before we take any more questions. I also wanted to talk a bit about social life at Paradox also. So Paradox is a company where we have fairly young people working at Paradox. Could you tell us a little bit about the social life and the company culture more?
I mean, I think you all saw that on the stage yesterday. But
Did you enjoy the karaoke? Yes, we had a lot of fun.
yeah, no, but like I guess like socially, Paradox is very flat. Like everybody knows each other, kind of. We're pretty big now, so it's getting hard for me to remember all the names. But like, for instance, I've had like days where it's like I sit with Fred and we watch Counter-Strike tournament live in the kitchen and drink beer. But like pretty much all my friends are in the game industry, and that's through Paradox. So like, you get a nice social circle and you have fun with friends. You go out and barbecue. You know, the one day it's nice weather in Sweden and so on. So yeah.
Now we have a lot of, we have a board game club and we have a running group and...
when we acquired White Wolf, there became a lot of people suddenly starting playing White Wolf games.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
we
interest.
also have the most important, the Warhammer channel.
Yes, Warhammer channel.
And some people might think the Tuesday beer is also the most important.
But that's outside of work, right?
Yeah, but we gather them up first. We have a whole Slack channel dedicated to it.
Well, Susie, I also want to talk a bit about, so you moved to Sweden less than a year ago, or is it exactly a year ago?
No, it's just a year ago, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you moved to Sweden to work for Paradox. Could you tell us a little bit about that expat experience?
Yeah, so from the moment that I got the job, I started 2 weeks later, so I had to gather up all my stuff, which was fun at the airport, and then move to Sweden. And Sweden is completely different from the UK. It's more efficient. It's slightly more expensive, but it was really nice. Everyone at work made me feel super comfortable and kind of helped me sort out all the things that I needed to do. So like when you move, the Swedish tax system is kind of complicated. So that can be a little hurdle to get over, especially if you don't speak the language, and my Swedish is horrendous. But everyone at work was super accommodating, and there's a service that Paradox pay for that I use that kind of escorted me to the tax office so that I didn't accidentally get removed from the country by signing the wrong thing. And when I came in one morning with a complete panic because the tax office had lost my copy of the passport, all of my colleagues were willing to translate. So, you know, there was like little things to get over like that, but Paradox really makes it a lot easier for you. And the work culture I found was hugely different. In the UK, a lot of the offices that I've worked in previously, everyone kind of does their job and keeps to themselves. Whereas at Paradox, everyone is super embracing, and you know, you can't blink without getting lunch invitations, or people are willing to show you around the city or take you to the cinema and just go that extra mile to make you feel at home. And that made a huge difference to me.
Okay. We have 2 minutes left. We have a lot of questions. I can just say also that me and Martin, we're going to be standing at the career corner all day. So don't panic if you don't get your question, because just come talk to us. Yes.
Hey, so how does Paradox work with the personal development of its employees? And I mean both on like a skills level, like having like feedback cycles, or sending them on, but also on like a career level, like how much are we able to move both horizontally and vertically within the company, if that makes sense.
It's probably the host of the panel who's supposed to be who's the best person to answer this question. You want to take it, Carol?
Well, thank you. At PDS we have personal development time, which is 2 hours a week, right?
Yeah, 2 hours a week, but like I, for instance, congregate them up, so I have 4 hours every Friday, every other Friday. So like I can just sit like half a day and just do whatever I want.
Yes.
Not really whatever I want, but essentially, like, you know, anything. I started on my PDT. I started trying to make a script debugger for our games, and I found that interesting. I never got time to finish it, so don't hold that against me. But
Yeah. And moving career-wise, I mean, as we grow quite quickly and have been doing so for the last couple of years. As we grow, the more opportunities arise also in the company, and we are quite good at recruiting internally as well for positions. So people move horizontally, and they also move up and down. You moved quite also since you, yeah.
Yeah, I started mid-level for community management, and one of the things that I did to prove myself, because I am an ambitious little person, was asked to take on projects that I could show my ownership and leadership. And then when the position came up for the senior, so I run the operations for the community team and work with the manager who has staff responsibility, came up, I had plenty of stuff to show, and also I'd got to know a lot of people in the company, so the examples really helped push me through. And now I'm senior, which is great, a year later.
Yeah, and I also think it's worth mentioning that at Paradox, we're not gonna come to you and say, this is what you're gonna do, you're gonna move from this position and then to that one and to that one, this is gonna be your career. It's always up to you to show to your team and to your manager, hey, I wanna do this because it's gonna benefit our team or the company as a whole in this direction. So you have to kind of decide on your own, where are you going to head and why are we gonna like allow you to do so? What's gonna be the benefit?
also on conventions, you ask, like conferences and so on, we do go to GDC, and there's a SIGGRAPH, there's a bunch of different the only one we don't go to that I know of is CPPCon, but I've been like, it would be cool to go to, you know, nearby Valve offices.
Can I add to that? So there's the guy heading up the engine team, John Wordsworth. I heard it before, but I heard it yesterday again. And that inspired me on this question. So when he was hired, about 3.5 years ago or something like that, he met with us at a conference. I don't remember which one actually, but it was in the UK. And he was in the process with us and also Avalanche, who's in the same building as us. And what swayed him to join Paradox was actually because we sent the developers and they sent someone from the marketing team to demo the game. And that was really important for him. So he can stand there talking to the actual developers of the game. And now he's one of us. So that's important, I think.
Jürgen, do we have time for another question, or?
We have time for one more question.
One more question. Okay, that guy seems very eager.
Thank you very much. For programmers, other than releasing a AAA game, what sort of experience would catch your eye or has caught your eye in a CV?
Sure. So when we're hiring for programmers, that's actually one of my favorite processes because we're in a luxury position. As we talked about, we have an open test that we link in the advertisement. So when we look at CVs, we also get to look at how you actually performed in a test. And it's not that easy to do that in any other role, really. We can do tests, but it's usually further along the line because we can't do the admin of giving everyone a design test, for instance. So that helps us in having something else to look at rather than your CV. But we have hired quite a lot of programmers from outside the industry as well to create success. So if you have experience working in C++ and that shows in your CV, and also you also done a great pathfinding solution, that's that's probably going to be in an interview. So it's as easy as that. Not that easy, but you know what I mean.
I mean, it also depends on the position, the seniority of the position. Like if we're looking for a senior position, then you're probably gonna need some experience. But like we do understand there doesn't exist unlimited supply of seniors in the world. But like when I got hired, I had done a scrappy little indie game that was on Steam, green light, and it wasn't selling anything. So I applied with that, and back then it was actually a senior position, but like I just applied, not thinking I would get it, and they heard back. Of course, I didn't become senior then because I was not. And I just did the interview. You just believe in yourself and just do it.
It's a great point. I actually forgot to mention that. Any hobby projects that you might have that might showcase something extra, please provide that in your application. We will take the time to look at that, because usually it can provide us with a lot more insight than just a normal CV can do. So anything that you think might help us learn something about you, please provide that.
Okay, we're only 5 minutes over time. Success. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope that you found our panel discussion interesting. As I said, Martin and me are going to be at the Career Corner all day long, so please come talk to us. Also, on Monday, once you get home and you're slept a few hours and has recovered from this weekend, go to our career page, career.paradoxplaza.com, and you will find all of our open positions and more information. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.